Get it on. Get it on. Get it on.
All right, guys, we are back. Welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Smethurst. Today, we're going to get into what we've missed over the last couple weeks. I know I've been out, and I apologize for that, but due to some family stuff, and I'm still in school to become a sports broadcaster, so I've been really busy with that, and trying to really focus on that because that's my goal. That's the reason I do this podcast, is to get practice and stuff like that. But let's get over that. Let's jump into what we've missed over the last 2 weeks, okay? And we're going to start out with the NBA. So obviously the NBA has had plans to come back for a couple weeks now, and so exciting. I mean, so exciting that we were making steps towards coming back. July 31st is their tentative start date. With everything going on, it might be a little later. They might have to push that just a little bit. But obviously the biggest news story is the fact that there's some players that, just they don't want to play, whether it's they don't want to distract from what's going on in the outside world, or they've got family members that have maybe some underlying health issues that could be affected by if they do attract the coronavirus, and they don't want to bring it home to their families, which is totally understandable. I mean, Avery Bradley is the most notable player sitting out for family health concerns. I mean, his son has trouble fighting off respiratory infections and stuff like that. So he doesn't want to bring that to his family, which is totally understandable. I think the biggest thing for all sports, and as a fan, I've seen for some reason some real negative reactions to these players that want to sit out. You hear oh, it's your job. This is what you do. This is what you get paid for. Well, obviously, no one's disputing that. That's the stupidest argument in the world. Obviously, these guys get paid for it. And a lot of these guys aren't asking for fucking paychecks, if they want to sit out. They're just thinking of their family, or they're thinking of what they think is right. You can't hold it against them. It's their freaking right to do whatever they feel like. That's fine. You cannot hold it against them. It doesn't make them a bad person or let any less of an athlete. They made a decision. They don't want to play. It's okay. The NBA is allowing these teams to go get replacements. For instance, Avery Bradley doesn't want to play. Good for him. He's sitting out for his family. I totally respect that. And now there's rumors that J.R. Smith's going to take his spot if he wants to play, which is good, But don't hold it against these players as fans. Who are you to judge? You're not in their shoes. You don't know what they feel. You don't know what they have to deal with. You don't know their family situation. Or for a lot of these not as famous players. Who, if they don't want to play, they don't have to play. Don't hold it against them. Don't say anything negative. Stop being so negative. These players don't want to play. They don't have to play. It's not a big deal. I don't hold it against them. Avery Bradley's doing what he thinks is best for his family. Trevor Ariza is not going down there because of a custody dispute, and he gets his kid for 1 month, and it's during the season. And so instead of going down to Florida and playing, he's going to spend a month with his kid. Good on him. Good on him. I'm happy he's doing it. He's doing it for the right reasons. So, but as fans, stop holding it against these players. If they don't want to play, they don't have to play. Just stop being negative. Just be excited that the sport is coming back, and what these teams put on the court or the field, or whatever they present us. Just be happy there's something to watch. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But basketball's coming back. Very excited. When we get closer, I'm gonna break it down a little bit more. But coming back. That's all. And we're taking steps, and most of it is positive. And that's the thing to look at here in a time that's real negative. Positive steps back towards sports. Really good. I'm excited. I'm not saying I agree with everything. Some of these players saying, they don't want to play because they don't think they will have the same platform for social change. I don't think that's 100% true. Look at NASCAR. NASCAR right now is they're making their stance known, and it's been positive, and they're making positive change and doing what they feel is right, and it's on a world stage. I mean, what they're doing with what Bubba Wallace is doing and what NASCAR as a whole is doing is fantastic to watch, and it's powerful. And I like I think that especially in a sport like NASCAR, they needed to do this publicly. They needed to do it in the world's eye, and I think that some of the players that are arguing against it, they really need to look at what NASCAR is doing, and the positivity that's coming out of what NASCAR is doing, and take that into account. That's all I'm saying. Let's hop into baseball. Thank God we have steps towards actually opening up. At first, when this all started, I thought baseball was going to be the first back. They were being the most vocal. They were being the most, both sides were being super active, whether it was negative or positive. They were being active. They were communicating, not well, but they were communicating at first. And I thought, okay, well, it'll go towards making, coming back first. But then in the last 2 weeks, it's been a giant shit show. I mean, these players players in league could not agree. Now, here's something to think about and something you got to acknowledge. Baseball's got the best players association in regards to what they do for their players. The contracts that top baseball players get is insane. I mean, just look at Harper, 33 over 11, 333 million over 11 years. Ridiculous. Trout's contract, insane. Garrett Cole, all that's guaranteed. All that money is guaranteed. And that's because the Players Association is so aggressive to fight for their players that they've worked that out over the years. And it's taken a long time. But they're so aggressive, and they fight for the players so much. They are the best Players Association. Now, you got to look at the other side of that, though, because they are so aggressive and so hostile at some points towards the league, their relationship with the league sucks. And that's what you saw. I mean, good Lord, these guys couldn't agree to, if it was, they couldn't come to an agreement if it would solve world hunger. I mean, they are just so far apart. It is ridiculous. And that's what you saw in the last 2 weeks. But at the end of the day, they came to an agreement in March that the commissioner could basically start the league without an agreement, and that's what it ended up doing. Now, the start dates, July 23rd, 24th, the weekend of July 23rd and 24th, right? If you go back, the goal when this all started was July 4th, so it's 20 days later, 60 games, universal DH, and basically how it breaks down is, I broke it down a while ago, but just to recap, you're playing your 4 division opponents. So if I'm a Giants fan, so let's just do the Giants, the Rockies, Diamondbacks, Padres, Dodgers, right? You're going to play each of those teams 10 times. That's 40 games. And then you're going to play your 2 closest teams to you geographically. So for the Giants, I think that outside your division, so I think for the Giants, that would be considered obviously the A's, and I think it's the Angels. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the Angels. So that's your, and you'll play them each 10 times, so that's 60 games. Right there it is. The most exciting thing, about, in my opinion, for this 60-game season, to be honest with you, is the fact that you're going to see teams that you never thought, if it was 162 games, would make it into the playoffs. Like, for instance, last year through like the first 35, 40 games, the Seattle Mariners were like one of the top teams. They were hitting everything. They raked. They pitched okay, not great, but they raked. They were putting up amazing numbers and just covering for their shitty pitching. And they were one of the top teams in baseball for the beginning of the season. That could possibly happen again, and you would see a team that you would never think in a million years could possibly make the playoffs. Universal DH. As much as I love watching pitchers like Greinke or Madison Bumgarner hit, Madison Bumgarner is still like a career 180 hitter. So as much as I love watching him hit bombs, he's not a good hitter. So excited for that aspect, at least for a year, to see how it plays out. I know a lot of traditionalists are not excited about the whole NL having a DH, but for a team like the Giants, that makes it so Pablo doesn't have to go play the field, and you can have a switch hitting DH. Maybe that helps your offense. Maybe that makes it click a little bit more. Maybe they can make a push. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think the Giants are making the playoffs. I mean, with that division they got to play, they never play. They haven't played the Diamondbacks well in a while. They usually play the Dodgers pretty well, which is surprising. But the rest of the division they don't usually play pretty well. So, and they're trying to get younger, but they're still pretty old. They're not making it. But a team like the Reds, who made a lot of offseason quiet moves, they could possibly make the playoffs. That would be kind of cool. The Chicago White Sox made a lot of moves in the offseason. That maybe this 60 games opens it up for them. But it's a sprint, and that's exciting for baseball in a sport that's 162 games long, usually for the season. It's going to be super exciting. A lot of analysts and stuff, raise the question, and I think it's a dumb question. Should you acknowledge records that are set in the 60-game season? Like, let's be honest, 60-game season, total possibility somebody hits 400. Maybe not in today's league because of it's home run or bust for a lot of teams, especially with the new way they swing the bat with the launch angle and all that stuff. But if somebody were to make a push for that 400, should you acknowledge it? No. It's not 162 games. It's not 154 games. It's shorter. There should be a giant asterisk. I wouldn't even acknowledge it at all. But should you acknowledge the World Series champion? Yes, 100%. They played under the same stipulations that every other team did. They play well enough to win the World Series. They are World Series champion. 60 games, 162, does not matter. They played by the rules. They did, whoever wins had the same stipulations as everybody else. And they should be acknowledged as World Series champions. That's another stupid question, but it's whatever. It's sports talk is grasping at anything to talk about at this point. But it's looking like we're going to get some more to talk about very soon. So I'm very excited about that. Another thing that baseball was talking about that you have to really look into is the fact that this was a total prequel. This whole negotiation was a total prequel for what's going to happen in 2 years when there's a new bargaining agreement to be set. The thing I'm talking about here is the fact that the bargaining agreement discussion in baseball is always a tough one because of what I said earlier of how the MLBPA acts towards the league and how the league acts towards the MLBPA. They can't stand each other. They can't agree on anything. So this is definitely a prequel, and it's something I'm not excited to deal with in 2 years. But let's look at the here and now. We've got baseball coming back. Obviously, players are going to test positive for corona. That's just a given. I mean, we've seen it in college sports with the student athletes coming back and they're testing positive. Alabama, Clemson, all these schools are seeing a huge amount of players come back and testing positive. And you know what? It is what it is. Baseball is going to have kind of a feeder system so they can just plug in another player for if someone were to go down. But because you're going to have to isolate if you test positive, which is totally understandable. I mean, it's the way of the world right now. So, but baseball's coming back, and that's a huge thing. As we get closer and we get more excited, we'll dive deeper into it. But very exciting that we at least have an agreement and we can take steps towards having baseball. I mean, last 2 weeks has just been a giant shit show. Really frustrating for a fan like myself to watch this every day and just be like, what is going on? Can you not see the golden ticket that you guys have had to gain some fans to get back as early as possible? And both sides just made sure that didn't happen. It was just ridiculous to watch on both sides of the argument, to be honest with you. I mean, but like I said, we're going back to baseball, and that's all that matters. All right. Football, like I said, they're in the regular offseason right now. I mean, there would be mini camps right now, but there's not. I mean, teams like the Bucks are still practicing at high school fields. Tom Brady don't give a fuck, obviously. But he's trying to learn his players. The players he's got around him now, he's trying to build some chemistry with them. So I don't hold anything against any of these guys that want to go out and play. If you want to play, you want to play, play. If you don't want to play, don't play. Like I said, it's up to you. Just don't expect a paycheck if you don't want to play. I mean, that's just if you don't do your job, you don't get paid. It is what it is. But big thing and I mean, in my opinion, the MVP of this whole Corona debacle has been the UFC. The fights that they've been putting out have just been fantastic. Most recently, I should say, Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos. Fantastic fight. What a war that was. And then a total snooze fest as the main event, where I'm not even going to mention it. I mean, Curtis Blades versus Volkov was just... Blades gave us a warning, told us he was going to take him down a ton, and he took him down a ton. Also gassed out, so him calling for a title shot's freaking ridiculous. But I digress. Shane Burgos versus Josh Emmett, what a war. Definitely a fight of the year candidate. Going back to Sugar Shane O'Malley, showing that he needs another step up in competition. We all thought he was getting it with Eddie Wineland. I thought O'Malley was going to win, but I didn't think he was going to win like that. One punch, just sitting Wineland down was a great fight. A great performance, I should say, by O'Malley. To go along with that, Cody Garbrandt looked like he got his confidence back, moving over to Mark Henry. One of the best coaches in MMA, obviously, and you just saw that. And then you've got this weekend, Kara Usman versus, or not this weekend, sorry, in a couple weeks, I should say, Kara Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Should be a fantastic fight. Gilbert Burns is fantastic on the ground, just like Kara Usman's going to take him down. I mean, it's bound to happen. But it should be a fantastic fight. I know we were all looking towards the Jorge Masvidal Kara Usman fight, all the shit talking and all that. That just blew up because Jorge Masvidal wants more money, even though he just signed a contract, which doesn't make sense. But we'll get into fighter pay in a little bit. But this weekend, there is a good fight. A shitty card, in my opinion, but a good fight in the return of Dustin Diamond Poirier versus Dan Hooker. It's going to be a war. These guys love to scrap. Both guys are stand-up artists. Both guys love to go out there and just put it all on the line. So it's going to be a very exciting. I think Poirier is going to win, but in my opinion, it's a pick'em fight. You can make a case for both fighters walking away with the W here, but it's going to be a great fight. But like I said, the card's shit, so I'm not going to break it down. I will break down the Kara Usman, Gilbert Burns card in full next week. I will give you my fight picks, and we will follow along together to kind of break down that card. All right? But I do want to touch on something that has been kind of a talk for a couple years now, but it hasn't really made too many waves. But fighter pay is a big deal in the UFC. Obviously, the fighters think they should be getting paid more, and I totally agree. These guys go out there and put it all on the line for millions of fans to watch all over the world. It's a worldwide sport. It reaches pretty much every country on the planet. And they believe they should get paid more. And I totally agree. I think they 100% should get paid more. And the contracts that they sign, I emphasize that, they sign are ridiculous. But you have to look at this from both sides of the coin. Dana comes out and says you signed the contract, which he is correct, but the contract is shit. So the fighters definitely have a case there. But here's what's going to have to happen, and I don't think it's going to happen for a while. Somebody in that fighters group, actually the whole group, every fighter is going to, especially this was the time to do it during a pandemic where if they don't want to fight, it really hurts the UFC and the content they put out, because you wouldn't be able to put out content. It really hurts them. the fighters are still Gilbert Burns, for instance, stepping right up to take that title shot because it's, that's his dream. That's his goal. That's everything he's wanted since he started this journey of fighting. So he steps in and takes on Kamaru Usman. Can't blame him for it. But at the end of the day, if he said, well, Masvidal wants more money, he's out there for fighter pay, he's trying to make it so that we get paid more, I'm going to sit this one out. They would have, as a whole, the group of fighters would have a bigger effect. And since there's always going to be somebody to step up and take fights because they need to make money or they're trying to make a name for themselves or whatever the case is, it's not going to happen. What needs to happen and what fighters have talked about for years now, a big advocate for this is Donald Cerrone, has been talking about for years a fighters union, like an MLBPA or like a players association for any big league. The UFC needs one, but it's a little different because the UFC can just cut you straight up. So I think with fighter pay, I think the biggest thing that you need to focus on at this point, especially with the Reebok agreement expiring very soon, a big thing you need to focus on is getting to be able to wear your sponsors again and to have sponsors and the walkout, not the flags, but the walkout banners, to display all your sponsors so you get bigger paychecks from your sponsors. That's a big way to make money. That's a big chunk of their contract that they don't, or a big chunk of their income that they don't get now because you can only wear Reebok and one Monster logo, right? So I think that's a big thing that the fighters need to start thinking as a whole. There needs to be some form of a union for these fighters, and I think it doesn't just need to be UFC fighters. It can be Bellator fighters to join this too. World Series of the PFL, Professional Fight League, too. These guys, they need to band together and to make change. You can't make change on your own in this situation. Fighters deserve to get paid more, but at the end of the day, you guys need to come together and do this as a unit, or it's just not going to work. Because they're just promoters like Dana will just be like, oh, next guy up. There can't be a next guy up if this is going to work. So fighter pay is a big thing. Obviously, John Jones doesn't seem like he's going to fight anytime soon. Looks like he might have possibly relinquished the light heavyweight championship. You don't know. Masvidal doesn't seem like he's fighting anytime soon. He was supposed to get a title shot, and he said, no, I want to get paid more. But he had just signed a contract too. So these fighters are under contract, which is that's a hard bump in the road to get over because it's a contract. You signed it. You should fight. I mean, it is what it is, though. If these guys don't want to fight, they don't have to fight. But the UFC just putting on these cards been a lifesaver for a sports fan, even if you're just a regular fight fan, a UFC fan. Something to watch every weekend has been really nice, and good on them. So, like I said, guys, I know I hadn't done a podcast in a while, and I know this isn't the most in-depth one that I've done, but like I said, due to some family stuff and stuff that's going on in my life, I just hadn't had time. I did start doing the random thoughts of the day, and I've gotten some great feedback, and I want to continue to do that to include, to get the fans and my listeners a little something to just kind of look forward to every day and kind of get some input, get some conversations going, and maybe that'll develop into something I cover on the podcast. So look out for that. And I will also start doing a few minor videos, maybe if you guys want throughout the week. If like a big story hits, I'll put a video out giving my opinion on it. But once a week from now on, you will be getting a podcast. I will make sure it happens. Just last couple weeks just been crazy with school and family and stuff like that. So I thank you guys for listening. I appreciate all the feedback you guys are giving me on the random thoughts of the day and the input and sharing it with your friends and stuff like that. I appreciate that so much. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week. And I think I'm going to put one more out this weekend just to kind of make up for missing the last 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more to dive into. Next week, like I said, I will be breaking down that Gilbert Burns Karo Usman card. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day.